and within a 1-year period, I had moved my wife and 2 little girls 5 times. The one thing that the HRM school really taught me was to look outside the box. Nothing is a bad idea till you can prove it's a bad idea. You can't just assume just because Dad didn't do it that way or your neighbors aren't doing it that way that it's not a good idea.
If you work hard or train hard, you know the frustration of cleaning sweat out of your clothes. Most detergents just don't cut it. They don't actually remove the sweat, especially from synthetic fibers. Instead, they just mask the smell with strong fragrances. You are left with flowery smelling, stiff clothes that start to stink immediately as soon as you sweat even a little bit. The sweat wasn't really removed, it is just covered up until it gets wet. End the frustration with Athlete Fresh, a detergent designed specifically to get sweat and grime from all fabrics, including your favorite synthetics. It gets deep, breaks down the bacteria and sweat enzymes, and rinses clear. No residue, no stiff clothes, no fragrance, and no stink. Bring new life to your favorite work clothes or athletic gear. Athlete Fresh will actually clean up the residue other detergents leave behind. Athlete Fresh is environmentally friendly, and 5% of every purchase goes to charity. Check them out at athletefresh.shop/FromTheGroundUpShow. Act fast, as they currently have a sale, 25% off your first order. Again, that was athletefresh.shop/FromTheGroundUpShow. Hey there, and welcome to From the Ground Up Show, the show where we encourage and inspire the next generation of free-thinking leaders by telling the stories of those that have been there, done that, and are still getting it done, building a life that they love with their hearts, their hands, and their hustle. I'm your host, Eric Loden. If you guys are enjoying the content, help me out. Like, share, follow, subscribe on all the social media platforms. And whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a podcast platform, if you can give us a thumbs up, a 5-star review, leave a comment, that really helps us move up and get discovered. And if you guys haven't yet, make sure you click that auto download button. Make sure that it gets downloaded each week when it's released. Those early downloads really help us move up in the rankings. Today, I am really excited. I am joined in the studio by Dave Perry. Dave is our first guest in the agricultural space. He has spent his career and really his entire life building and running the Perry Cattle Company in Arvada, Wyoming. Dave is a father, a husband, and a follower of Jesus. So, Dave, thanks for joining us. If you want to snag some new From the Ground Up Show merchandise, coffee cups, sweatshirts, hats, whatever you want, we have it there. Check out our online store at shop.fromthegroundupshow.com.
You bet. So I already get to correct you. It's in Claremont, not Arvada. That's a big deal down there.
It is. A couple miles difference makes a big difference.
Anyway, glad to be here. We'll see how she goes.
All right. Well, we like to start off every show just getting to know you a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about your life growing up?
My dad was always in the ranches. He was a ranch hand, and I mean, it was tough for monetarily, but I have 2 brothers, and we grew up, and Dad worked for several different outfits before he became a foreman. But during all them other previous years, even though it was tough, us boys never felt it. We never felt like we was short on anything. We lived off of wild game mostly, but 3 boys, you got to keep something in front of them all the time. But anyway, so I've been exposed to ranching all my life and grew up that way. And Dad, when he became a manager, it was actually with a man that he had trained that had come out here from the East. And he worked on Dad's place, or the place Dad was managing in Bighorn, and with him. And then after he decided he loved the ranching and the country so much that he moved here from New York, and he ended up buying a ranch. And he got Dad to manage it down on the Powder River. So that's when we moved down there, and I went to high school and whatnot down there, and kind of went from there. And so it was a good move. We was down there, and the man was Charlie Whiten, and he was very good at letting us expand. He encouraged us to do what we wanted to. And so we got to run a few cows as kids and whatnot in high school, and kind of got a little herd started and had a few horses because we was passionate about roping. But went to college, and I decided I was going to be a veterinarian because, well, I didn't think there was any way I could get in the ranching business without just being a ranch hand or a manager like Dad if you worked your way up. But I decided, I didn't want to really do that way. But I got through the 3 years of pre-vet and worked for a vet for a summer, and I should have did that first because then I discovered I didn't want to be a vet. You had to deal too much with people. You had to do with small pets and stuff, and that's where the money was. And it was like, I didn't want to do that. So that was out. So I went ahead and went back to college for the fourth year and thought, well, I'll get some kind of degree. But it was like, I went a half year, and then my brother came to me, Mike, and said, why don't we go to Arizona and rope? I said, that's a lot better idea. I ain't having this college is. So to my mother's dismay, I went 3.5 years and didn't get a degree. So, but I had no idea what I would go in that would help me to do it. So anyway, and roping was a passion for us. I was under no illusion that was some way that I wanted to make a living. I was still wanted to be in the agriculture, in the ranching business.
You were a step above most cowboys.
Well, we loved roping. I mean, it was, in fact, I joke when somebody said, how did you find a wife that put up with you guys going roping? I said, I took her to the worst arena in Wyoming, and if she wasn't smiling when we came back, then that person wasn't for me. That a very selfish attitude on my part, but Carol passed the test, and we got married in 1981, and we was on the. It was right. Actually, he had sold the place down. Charlie had sold the place down at the Powder River, and had bought a place in Sheridan, outside of Bighorn, up against the mountains, and we went there, and so that's where Carol and I was, and we stayed with Charlie, and like I say, he was very good about letting us expand and whatnot, and he put up with some things that I look back on it and think that, well, if one of my hired men did that crap to me, I'd probably fire him. But anyway, he was very good and very encouraging, and we ended up increasing our cow herd up to 90, and we had to pay for our winter feed ourselves, but we didn't take any wages, but he provided the house and utilities. So it was a way for us to get some livestock paid for and kind of be ready in case something else changed, which it did. In 1980, well, let me back up there. I was going to say about the other one, but in 86, the last couple of years had been pretty tight, and I didn't know what was happening with Charlie. And I mean, he had me. I'd advanced to the foreman position, but I could see that he was struggling with the place, and it was a very high dollar maintenance outfit. A lot of irrigating, and when we was doing a lot of haying, and anyway, I thought, I see the writing on the wall, and I went to this seminar, and a gentleman by the name of Alan Savory had come over here from South Africa, and him and another gentleman by the name of Stan Parsons had started this, they called it HRM, which was Holistic Resource Management, and basically it was a ranching school, and these guys had developed methods and had proven that the college ag departments that was in at the time were wrong in the way that they wanted to manage grass, and it was a whole issue of time and whatnot, and they had time and time again been able to increase it substantially, and sometimes up to double, if not more, of your carrying capacity.
Wow.
So I thought, well, if Charlie does not stay in the ranching business, I need to know how to do this so that I can survive. And so I told him, I said, I'd like to have a week off. I'm going to go down to Albuquerque to this school. I said, and see about it. Well, Charlie had seen some of it too, and he said, I'm going to go with you. I said, okay. Well, that was good because then he paid for it. So anyway, we went down there and it changed both of us immensely because not only was it on land management, it was also people management and the finances, tying all that together in a big picture as opposed to just focusing on one area. You know, people you get focused on just the people aspect of it, then you lose track of your finances, or you get focused on just the finances, and then you're there by yourself because people don't want to hang around you. So anyway, we come back and he was also on fire, and we sat down and he showed me his finances on the place, and he was in a wreck. It was not good. And we brainstormed, and actually my brother had went down with us. We just loaded up a Suburban. So we was brainstorming on what to do, and it was come up with some different ideas. And he had been doing a lot of haying and selling hay, and it was a losing proposition. I mean, machinery was super expensive. Hay was not that high. It was the wrong end of things. And we calculated up what we could do with the cows, and we ended up coming up with a plan where we was going to divide up the irrigated meadows. He had there must have been 800 irrigated meadows there, I think, and 800 acres of irrigated meadows, and plus he had some dry land, and decided to push it to the max because he's in such a tough thing, and we went out and bought 800 cows, and we was putting it on there. The trouble is we had the meadows in such good shape with the alfalfa that it was hard to manage it properly, and we thought we had some anti-bloat things and stuff, but we didn't, and we got in a heck of a wreck, and we lost like 80 cows that summer, and it was tough. But that fall, the FDIC came in and shut down the bank that had his note. So I don't know if you're familiar with what happens then, but most of the time they just foreclose on you. Huh. But he had those cows, and so he had the assets, and we had a plan still. Even though we'd lost those cows, it was still, this was hard for people to believe. That fall, we made more money even with that massive loss. A 10% loss is unheard of unless you have something. But we made more money for the place than he did when he was selling hay. And I mean, and that looked good to the FDIC. And I mean, we had to go through that whole next year. They had control of everything. I mean, you had your money automatically went to them. So I got the most intense financial planning and negotiating I've ever had in my life. We was leasing grass from different people, and by then we had the meadows straightened out, so we was able to get that kind of going too. But we leased some grass, and if we bought anything, always we had to have them write it as a lien against us. We actually had the paper that we had a lawyer write up for us, so that when we sold any bunch of calves or anything, these guys would come in, and the guy that we sold to had to write a check to every one of them. Otherwise, they could be out of money, or I don't know if they'd ever get paid, because it was operating out of Denver. I mean, it was crazy. Anyhow, that was kind of like I say, that was a year and a half of extreme intense thing, and we got it. He got it all negotiated with them finally, and pulled out of that, and we went and had a good plan, and everything was going pretty good, and some other things had happened, and he had some grass come up, and we was working on that and go back and forth, and I was all excited, and I was looking at it, and I thought, I'm going to be able to expand here pretty good, and then some big money came in, and they really wanted that place, and Charlie thought, I can get out of this and just retire. That's what he did, 1989, and it caused a lot of turmoil. I had the cows mostly paid for. I had 100 head at that time, and so we was able to survive on that. And then Carol she had went and was teaching, and that was a very helpful thing to keep us afloat. That second check, my uncle always said, marrying a school teacher is a good idea, Dave. It's like having 100 head of cows paid for. She didn't appreciate that at first, but afterwards she kind of understood it. But so anyway, we after that point, I had a bunch of small leases around Bighorn. I don't know, it's way more chopped up than it is here in the Buffalo area. So okay. I mean, I had, and I was getting by doing a lot of different things and making it work. And that first year, we had to move off the place because the other guys was coming in, of course. Before that year was out, and within a 1 year period, I had moved my wife and 2 little girls 5 times. And she stayed married to me anyway. But it was so, we'd get into a place and that was for sale, and they just wanted us. And I mean, we had Carol had a reputation of keeping everything up, and usually she fixed it up better than what it was when we moved in. Well, shucks, they'd sell it in a month, and then we was on our own again. And anyway, we moved around to there until we finally found a place over on Crazy Woman. And they leased that to us for 6 years. So we felt like the guy, when he was showing it to us, and he said, well, how long are you guys thinking? And my wife said, how about 50 years? She was tired of moving. But anyway, she quit teaching then, and because she just wanted to be there with the kids down on Crazy Woman. And we just kept building the cows, trying to. It was pretty tight. I mean, we wasn't getting that second income in, but we was doing good. Definitely not super flush by any means, but I was increasing my asset in a slow manner. But we was getting them paid for and keeping ahead of the game. And then when we lost that lease, and it got tough. And I thought, well, I just need someplace to hang out. I found another small lease that I could keep, or 2 small leases I could keep it on, and kind of went in with my brother on some stuff. He was doing very well. And some friends of ours said we could stay in this trailer house that they had, that their hired man, they didn't have a hired man in it at all, I said. And I said, I'll fix that trailer house up for you if I could just stay there for a while. And they said, you can stay there, especially if you'd help us irrigate a little bit down here. I said, no problem. So that was in the early spring of 95. I was working for my brother doing some things, and it must have been around the end of April, I think it was. I was out fencing and tipped a 4-wheeler over on me and broke my back. Yeah, and I spent 3 months in a turtle shell in the house. Obviously, I didn't do any irrigating, and fortunately, well, my nephew was living with us. He was in high school, and so he took care of the cows and stuff. So we got through all that, and got through there. And friends said, "Oh, forget about leasing. It's no big deal. You can just stay there." They wasn't going to do anything with the trailer house anyway, and I was very thankful for that they was helping us out like that. And so anyway, it was a kind of a tough thing. And then it must have been that fall, they asked Carol if she would teach in Claremont, and she was teaching, and that got us. Actually, I said that wrong. It was actually right before we moved into the trailer house. We were still at Crazy Woman, and she went and was teaching, and she didn't want to teach. She loved it being with the girls, but so she got her resume ready and went over there to talk to them. And they looked at her and said, well, what do you need from us? Crying because they just hired her because they wanted her back so bad. So anyhow, but that was fortunate because while I was laid up, we really, really needed that income for certain. So anyway, We got through that, and we was there for like 4 or 5 years, and I did different leases. I worked for a couple of different people, and they let me run some cows, but it was always a short-term thing, and so it was pretty tight. And we was pretty nervous about it. We kept trying to figure out a way to buy a place, and we couldn't figure it out. And then finally in 2001, we got things together and made an offer on the place that we're on. And my folks was getting ready to retire. They had no place to go. They had a decent retirement that they had built up with through the last place that he was managed for 20 years or something. He was there, and he said, and so they had the money, but they didn't know what they wanted to do, and they decided, well, how about if we put a house on your place? And I said, because I heard I'd been talking to them, and I didn't have enough down payment, and they came up with some money, and then I had two friends that came up with some money. One of them wanted to she was retired, and she just wanted to work on the place and maybe eventually put a house there or something. And then another person loaned us some money. If you get in a deal like that, and basically what I did is I had to have enough money to get the down payment and get the note for 1 year. And then if the bank sees that your plan actually was what you said it was, make your first payment, you can refinance it, and then I could pay them people off.
Oh, okay.
And which I did with two of them. Mom and Dad, they did end up moving on the place, so we just they basically give them some land, and they put a house on there and went from there. So anyway, we've been there since 2001, and that whole process, my wife reminded me is that just like with the veterinary stuff, I didn't have a passion for that. There's no way that was going to work. But I've always had a passion for the ranching, and you can you can get a business going if you have the passion for it and are willing to. I mean, we had to sacrifice quite a bit several times.
Oh man, and for not a short period of time.
Well, and that was
married in 81, and you finally got your own place in 2001.
Yeah, I mean, it was we had to work at it quite a while, and this HRM, they actually became an organization, and they have several teachers, and so I would bring these teachers in, and so that people could. And they just have friends come, ranchers, whoever was interested. I usually had around 20 people at a time, and I don't know, I did that like 5 times, I think, or 6 times. And I always, people, different times, there's always an excuse. Well, it's hard to get into the ranching now. They said the interest rates are too high. It costs 10% to buy land, or to do anything. And I said, Carol and I in 82 got our first 20 cows and we had to get a note for them, and we did at 22%. Thank you, Jimmy Carter. That was in the 80s, and that was rough. And I mean, so when they tell me that, well, the interest rates are too high, I can't do that. Well, you aren't determined to do that. I mean, just like when I was talking about when we had to come up with the down payment for the notes and stuff, we had to do that in order to. I mean, we had to get creative in order to get that done.
Yeah,
and all that time, from the time that Carol and I was married, we had the one thing that the HRM school really taught me was to look outside the box. Nothing is a bad idea till you can prove it's a bad idea. You can't just assume just because Dad didn't do it that way or your neighbors aren't doing it that way that it's not a good idea.
That's good.
And
nothing is a good idea until you can prove it's a bad idea. or nothing is a bad idea until you can prove it's a bad idea. I like it.
Exactly. Because, and
I want to take a moment to tell you about this episode's sponsor, MacArthur Company. As a former contractor, I know the importance of working with a great team. That team includes more than your employees. You need what you need on time and at the right location. Competitive pricing sure helps too. A good relationship with your supplier can make a huge difference. That is why I always use MacArthur Company. At MacArthur, you are more than just a number. You are a person, a customer, and a friend. With branches throughout the United States, MacArthur is big enough to handle your most demanding needs, but they do it with small-town service. MacArthur isn't another big box store run by a board answering to stockholders. They are employee-owned, making them one of the last independent suppliers, serving all of your commercial, industrial, and residential building envelope needs. Whether you're doing roofing, insulation, HVAC, or siding, MacArthur has you covered with great service and a personal touch. If great service and good pricing don't win you over, make sure you check out their customer incentive program, where every purchase earns points towards a free vacation. I am already packing for my next MacArthur incentive trip. Call or check online to find your nearest MacArthur warehouse so you too can enjoy superior service and start earning points towards your next vacation. Get what you need, when and where you need it. All the service without the hassle. MacArthurCode.com.
I mean, fortunately we had a banker that kind of had watched us and everything. She was actually in that bank that went down, and then she went to work at another bank, and we stayed with her, and she knew what we did. And another thing that we did is the school had taught us to make sure you had your cash flows and everything up to date all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's to some people that seems kind of ridiculous to even have to say it, but it's amazing how many people have all their stuff in a box someplace, or receipts or whatever.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we was able to go to the bank and we'd show them the plan. I mean, it was always there for quite a while. We didn't have a lot of equity. And I mean, we come through a couple snowstorms or a couple bad times. One of them was a snowstorm, and one of them was when we lost the lease and I broke my back at the same time. And it was almost like starting over.
Yeah.
I mean, it was close. I mean, I had a few cows paid for, but it wasn't. I mean, the sales we made was to survive, not to expand.
You get a bit different price when you have to sell to eat versus holding on until the price is right.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole thing there, you know, thinking outside the box. One of the things that we experimented with, even when we was not experiment so much, but it was kind of experimenting with the alfalfa meadows and stuff when we was with Charlie. I mean, even though we was in that wreck, we was able to do so well with so much of that stuff. And by doing them short-term grazing and stuff, and it just changed. And then instead of another thing that I did is that I don't keep replacement heifers. If you're familiar with, you know, you build your cow herd up by keeping your heifer calves, and then it takes 2 years before you get the first calf out of them. So you got quite a little money in them. And I needed to change money faster than that. So I did not keep any replacement heifers, and I was buying cows. And when we got like on this place that we're on, and I went to the bank with my plan, and I had already showed them that I could do it. And I bought a lot of cows, refer to them as last calf heifers. They got one more year maybe, but they got a calf in their belly, and we would run them and then sell the cow and the calf in the fall. And then I would start all over again. And you could pick them up usually quite a little cheaper. And a lot of times I would buy them and they wasn't in that good a shape, because like if they come out of, say, KC country or something, you know, it's dry and hard and dry down there, and you'd get those cows that was 10 years old and they'd be fairly thin, and I would bring them and I would have those irrigated meadows to throw them on. And the cows would gain, so they would actually become worth more. And then I'd have the calf also, so I'd have a cow that was actually worth more than what I paid for her, as well as the calf.
Oh, wow.
So that was what enabled us to do that. And it's always interesting. I've never lived close to a highway like we did when we bought this place. Everybody sees what we're doing. So, and it was not traditional. And I mean, we got 500 irrigated acres down there, and there's only 330 dry land. So, I mean, to run cows, you had to use irrigated.
Yeah.
And I did not want to buy a bunch of expensive equipment and do a traditional hay base or anything. I can buy my hay and cheaper than what I can put it up for and make more money off of that with the cows than I ever could by raising my own hay. Unless there's just a year like this last year that, I had so much grass and everything because it was such a beautiful year. And I ended up doing a little bit of hay, and I just got some old broken down equipment, and I can get by. But if I did 500 acres, then you got to go spend a lot of money. And it's just like any business, machineries went through the roof.
Oh, man.
And
yeah.
As you're well aware. So anyway.
Well, I want to roll back and dive in on a few more details. I know you said you grew up for the most part out on Powder River. That was kind of the first move. What was going to school like on Powder River in the 60s and 70s? Did you get bused into school, or was that a small country school?
It was 40 miles. We was in high school at that time. Well, Mike and I was. Steve was a seventh grader, the youngest brother. It was 40 miles of gravel to get to high school and to Broadus, Montana. And we rode the bus a lot, and we also drove. And then after the first year, Mom and Dad decided, we can't torture you guys that much. And we was playing football. And Steve and Mike both wrestled also. And so they bought us a little trailer. And us three boys, which I don't think the town of Broadus is very happy with Mom and Dad, because us three high school boys by then Steve was a freshman. So anyway, we'd stay in there during the sports season and then drive back and forth all the time. But it was a very isolated place. I mentioned that about
when town is Broadus.
And Broadus is like, I don't know, there must be 500 people there maybe. So,
even 30 years later, there's not much in Broadus.
Yeah. And so anyway, it was I liked it, but also back up. When we was still up, Dad was working out towards Deckard. So I went to a one-room schoolhouse out there. I was the only eighth grader. And then
top of your class.
Yeah. You've made valedictorian pretty easy. And, but when I became a freshman, they bused me into Sheridan.
Okay.
And there's, I don't know, it was 180 kids or something in a class when I was out of my element. The only thing that saved me is I had relatives and some friends in there. And so you kind of felt like you was going to get by. But I can remember the first week I was lost all the time because it was 3-story big old high school block building there. And I was definitely out of my element, but so going to Broadus was actually a good place for us. There were 60 kids in my class, and it was good, and then went straight from there to Bozeman, and it was not a tough move at all. Of course, a lot of kids from Broadus goes to Bozeman.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
and you said you did 3.5 years of college and then didn't finish. Do you ever regret that?
I regret it for my mom. Dad, he's like, oh, whatever works. But it was, I don't, because I didn't have a passion for anything that I was learning there. And I don't know how many times I've talked to people. I got more out of that 5-day HRM class. Of course, there was I went to 3 other classes afterwards. They would break it out and have just the financial planning, like a 3-day class. And so you'd go to that, and then they'd break it out, and you'd have just a 3-day on grass management planning. And so I went to a total of those 3 schools, and it was actually, I learned more in that than I did for the whole 3.5 years.
That was going to be my next question. It sounds like you actually pursued a lot of education. It just wasn't necessarily in the classroom. You went out and found places to learn what you needed to learn. How has that experience affected your view of education with your kids or your grandkids? Would you encourage them to go towards a college education or not? Or does it depend on what they're interested in?
Mostly that last part. Depends on what they're interested in. Don't go to college just to get a degree. Yeah. You can read all over the place about the kids that got degrees and they can't get a job. And it's like, I think so many kids will go to school and have no focus on or idea what they want to do. And, which was, I mean, I kind of had an idea. I thought I was going to be a veterinarian. And the more I did it, it's like, this isn't. And by the time I got done with my 8th chemistry class, I was like, I know I don't like this. So anyway, yeah, in fact, both of my daughters got, one got an engineering degree and the other one got a master's in psychology. And Lane is still using the master's in psychology. But she said, I am not going to make my kids feel like they got to go to college. She said, you look around at how many people, and she actually just got done going to Claremont and was talking to the kids there. They asked her to come down and just visit. And she said, if you've got a goal and know what you want to do, then you should go to college and pursue that goal. If you don't, how many people you can talk to that have just been innovative. She talked about some guy, I don't know if this was in Sheridan. I think it was in Sheridan. He started picking up dog poo business. And the guy is making 6 figures.
It's huge. Yeah.
I mean,
they're doing Sheridan and Gillette. And I forget the name of the business, but I mean, it blew up pretty big.
It did. And I mean, it's just what you do. And if you're innovative and want to be a businessman, then do that. If you want to work for somebody, there is a ton of money to be made in trade schools and stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look around right now, you can talk to anybody, and there's a shortage on so many things. You can go to trade school for a year, and you're set to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a pretty similar opinion is go to college if you have a specific goal and a plan to get there.
Yeah.
Whether it's scholarships or if you have somebody funding that for you or, a really good plan to pay off those student loans. But to just wander into student loan debt without a plan of where you're going and why you're going there is not a good place to be.
Right. And it was my second brother and I both kind of ended up same deal. We went to school. We kind of thought we had a plan. I mean, Mike was actually going to go into law enforcement, and just because he couldn't think of what else to do, I think. But it was like, and we went there for a while, and it was like both of us like, this ain't what we want to do. This is not it. And so anyway, and I mean, I was good at school and stuff. I mean, I kind of joked around. I said, I really didn't want high school to end because then I got to go to work. But it was, I mean, like I say, I was salutatorian in our class and did good at college. I mean, okay, I had a 3.3, but it was like just, there wasn't anything that was clicking. And I mean, I could pass classes and do all right, but half the time I just got tests done and it was in one year and out the other, and that ain't good either.
No.
So anyway. So
you mentioned, I think you said for a little while, one of your brothers kind of partnered with you and was ranching with you. Are they involved in ranching? Did they stay in the industry?
Mike was for quite a while. Of course, Mike, it was so ironic. I mean, he was one of these guys in school that, in college, a good friend of mine that's got his degree in engineering. They helped these two guys get through basic algebra, basically. And I mean, he was so happy to get a D, he couldn't stand it. Terrible at math, very good at business. And Mike is the one that had the Perry trailer sales. So he was ranching. Yes, to answer your question, he stayed in ranching and he loved ranching, but he loved the pursuit of the business end of things more than the cow end of things. I enjoy the cows and that stuff as well. I mean, I'm not attached to them because when it's profitable, they get to go. But
they taste pretty good.
They do very well on the plate. But anyway, to answer your question, he ended up getting out of the trailer business and he was in just straight ranching. And that's when he got a big lease up north behind on the Montana line. And he could take some more cows in, and that kind of saved me during that period just before we bought the ranch. And And I was able to, he helped me out by helping me get through that. And then he ended up selling his place, and he decided he didn't want to fight the ranching anymore. I ended up on the wrong side of the markets a couple of times and kind of pulled him down pretty hard. But he come back from that, and he bought some houses and was trading houses, fixing them and trading them. And then he went in, and his oldest son was down in Rawlins, and he was down there visiting them in this motel. It was a real good buy, he thought. Every friend that he had told him, don't do it. So anyway, so Mike is in the motel business, and I think he's done trading houses right now, but he's trying to just get retired. But when you're in motel business, you can't retire. So anyway,
yeah.
But
Man,
anyway,
that's a pretty diverse career track.
It was for him. He, like I say, he loved the business end of the ranching, but I think he was when he loved doing the other things too. I mean, he was extremely successful in the trailer business and stuff, and so that's when he decided he didn't need to have any cows.
And you mentioned something earlier that struck me. I was curious if this was a normal arrangement, and make sure I understand it right here. When you're working for Charlie, trying to build your own herd, you owned your own cows that you ran on his place with his cows, and in return, you kind of worked for free. Is that the arrangement you had?
Correct.
So you got to use his land and his facilities, and in return, you kind of managed his herd along with your own.
And that was something that came from that school. Well, Charlie was helping us out a little bit. He before the school, like I say, Carol and I had 20 cows, and he ran them. He completely covered all the grass and hay on them. I'd have to cover my own vaccines and stuff. But that's something that came out of that ranching, the HRM school, is that have your hired men buy into your operation. If they are not thinking they're super important in the operation. And I heard that gentleman that I was telling you about talk about that same thing. And you had mentioned it. Keeping hired men is a tough deal as it is. And if they aren't feeling like that this is where they really belong, then it's impossible. Yeah. And so anyway, that's something that come out of that. And that's when Charlie started letting us expand, which he was pretty cash poor, as I was saying at that time. So that actually, where we could come up with the grass, that actually helped him with his financial part of it also. And that's something that I was struggling with, is trying to, I always give my hired men an option. And when I was listening to Reggie Brock, and he was talking about, trying to get your people to understand how important they are to you. And I've struggled with that. I think I'm doing it. And then it's like, dang, I was going like 2 years, and then they said, oh, this ain't for me. I'm going, well, then to be honest, to give myself a little bit of a break, is they, two of them hadn't ranched before, and they wanted, it sounded like a really good idea.
Yeah.
and they was actually both very good hands in the first year. I was excited for both of them. And then the second year they started on them. They really wasn't cut out for this. And one of them was my son-in-law. He'd never had anything to do with agriculture whatsoever. And but he was extremely teachable and did really good, and I was excited. But I had told him when him and my daughter come and asked us if they could come, because they knew I was needing some help. And I said, absolutely, but you have to promise me you will leave 2 weeks before you'll never speak to me again. So he did, and I'm glad he did, because he's doing very, very well. He's in the medical field and he loves it, and so that was what needed to happen.
Yeah, it's definitely a lifestyle, not a job.
It is, but I think to a certain extent, any business, to a certain extent, will be a lifestyle. Anybody that has their own business, you have to work around everything towards your business and not mess up with your family and everything else, But my wife, Carol, when we was talking last night, said they got to have the passion. I mean, and these people that want to get into ranching, I mean, we are doing very well from my standpoint. I mean, there's people, I'm sure when I went down that list of podcasts he did, I thought, I am a pretty small potatoes compared to these fellers. But it was very, we had a note they was planning on it being a minimum of 30 years to get it paid off. We paid it off in 21 completely. And I mean, we have a lot of equity, and from my standpoint, that now, to have land, of course, has increased in value, and cows have doubled in value, and we have them all paid for now. And it's like, and somebody said, well, Dave, why don't you sell that and just retire? And I said, and what am I going to do? I said, I love what I do. I want to have a hired man there so I can do less of what I do. That's my whole goal. And it's just, I couldn't imagine not doing something in the ranching business or in agriculture. And like I said, I'm not interested in expanding. That Reggie Brock really brought that home to me, that, them guys was going to expand and they was going to get bigger, but it's going to make some more money, but their time is going to be shot. So you make your value decisions that way. And so anyway, it's
sounds like a good place to be for now.
It's, we feel very, very blessed. The whole thing, that was something, back in 1990, kind of right before all the real wreck started, I guess, or I had accepted Christ. And from that point on, it was like, okay, my focus is a little bit more towards, not a little bit more, it was a lot more trying to figure out what God wanted me to do instead of me thinking that I had it all figured out.
Yeah.
And that was, fortunately, I knew the Lord when I was laid up there with a broken back. It was like, oh my goodness. It was like, why'd this happen to me?
If you didn't know him before, you'd get to know him that 3 months of laying on the back.
Of course, I'd seen people that had the similar kind of injury that were in a wheelchair. And so I was thankful for that. I was still mobile, and I come out of it. I have no repercussions from it at all. So that was definitely a God thing in my opinion. So,
yeah.
So anyway, it was.
I know you mentioned a few times that you've kind of taken a unique approach and done the new thing, the creative thing, rather than the way Granddad and Dad always did it. I know I've talked to some people, especially in other industries, that have tried that and it doesn't work out for them. How do you weigh these new ideas or unique ideas against the way it's always been done? How do you weed out the good ideas from the bad?
Well, it wasn't like I was the first one to do it. So all I had to do is just monitor the situation all the time. Like I say, we monitored them dead cows that first year at Charlie's. It was a tough year. The quality of life sucked. It was highly stressful. So that was, grazing the alfalfa was obviously a stupid idea. We couldn't handle the non-bloat. The feed we had for non-bloat didn't work enough, I should say. So anyway, but we got, figuring out cash flows and stuff. If you're being honest with yourself, and that's a critical issue. Anytime you're doing cash flow, you can manipulate numbers however you want if you're gonna do that. But that was the start all the time when we was looking at doing different things, and talking to people all the time. The guys that had been through the school and stuff, when we first went down there, I can remember sitting at a little seminar, and Alan was there, and And he had talked about some stuff, and then they had some university guys talking and stuff, and it was obvious they thought he was full of crap. I mean, they wouldn't even listen to him because it was so, and that was the way it was for probably, at least 10 years. Mm-hmm. And we actually, I got with several other guys, there's like 10 of us, then we started an organization that was just out in Wyoming to promote schools and to help ranchers and stuff, and was very successful and got a lot of people introduced to the whole thing. And I can still remember going to a thing that the bank had, and they asked me if I'd come in there, and it was basically they had some professors and some financial bankers and stuff doing it was a 2-day thing right here in Buffalo, and I can remember these guys was talking about different ways to make your place pay, and this one guy was talking about trying to get cows and improve your ground. He says, and I said, well, if a guy can do better time management and stuff, and he goes, oh, you're that guy. The word was out on me, and I was a marked man and didn't even know it. But the ironic thing was they got all done with this, and the last speaker was a university professor, and he went through there, and he was talking about all the things they did on this ranch, like it was their idea, and they had put fences in and divided some and they was rotating cows through these pastures, and they had improved the water and so on and so forth, and like it was their idea. And he gets all done, and he said, and then in this year they came to it was called WIRE at that time, which was sponsored by the UW. And they came to a WIRE class, and I'm going, these guys was working HRM the whole time, and them boys at the college was monitoring them. And they was taking that on as they were the ones that did it. And I'm going, okay, fellers, you guys are coyotes. But I mean, and now it's in all the colleges. All that stuff I'm talking about with the HRM stuff, with the grass management, they are promoting that. All kinds of high tech with the collars. I don't know if you've heard about the
cows.
You put a collar on a cow, and you'll have different towers on your pastures or on your place. I mean, and you can draw a line on your phone, and the cow will not go past that line because it'll just starts to buzz a little bit, and then if they go too close to the line, it shocks them.
Yeah, I've got something like that for my dogs.
It's the exact same thing.
Fenceless pastures,
and they are having extremely good luck. Which that's really, really good for like when you got elk or something.
Yeah, because I can tearing down your fences.
I can run hot wires really cheap. Elk can destroy miles of hot wire and nothing flat.
Yeah,
they do not get trained to hot wire. They just tear it off. But I mean, so that kind of technology, back to your question, I mean, those kind of things you can, if you're on the right path and just keep trying to go with it, and the numbers and the time and all that stuff coincide properly. I mean, it's exciting to me because, this is not really a feather in my cap, but it did make me feel really good. When we first moved down there, of course, I brought in 250 cows, and I was grazing the meadows. There was only one meadow that had alfalfa in it, so I hate it. There was 80 acres, and the rest of them I rotated cows through. I put hot wires up. I don't have elk, fortunately. I mean, I could run one hot wire, and my neighbor down the road, right next to us, was watching it and everything, and like 4 years later. I'd been there for 4 years or something, or 5, and come and told me, he says, yeah, I watched how you was doing that, Dave, and I gave you 2 years before you'd lose it all. And he said, I am really impressed. You're probably making as much money as anybody in the valley now. And I thought, well, it was interesting, like I say, being on the highway where everybody can see you. It caused a lot of gossip up and down the valley, or a lot of conversation, maybe I should say, not gossip. But anyway, But I thought I was very, very pleased that he noticed that, he was watching it pretty close to see what happened. And it was, so anyhow.
Yeah, when you first said something about being on the highway, that never occurred to me because I'd drive back and forth and never pay attention to what was going on over there. I guess if
a rancher has a
rancher,
habit of looking across the fence to see, well, what's he doing there? What's that pasture like? What's going on there? So anyway.
Well, I know we talked about it a little bit. There's some things that are a little bit unique to the ag business, and especially the cattle business, that make it different from other industries. What are some of the difficulties you've noticed running an agricultural business, or especially a cattle business, that maybe other businesses don't have to deal with?
I don't know if that's. I mean, every business has their own thing. I think is the way I think you'd have to look at it. The one thing that is different, I mean, you're dealing with live animals, so you got to keep them alive. and so I mean, that's your biggest challenge is keeping them alive and keeping them profitable. But I would compare that to a lot of different businesses. I mean, it's the same. I mean, and you got to keep your equipment going. You got to keep all that stuff going, and to a certain extent. I mean, it isn't like a live animal, but that's probably the biggest thing. And you're always dealing with live organisms. I mean, you're talking about your grass. I mean, that's basically what I do is I harvest grass. That's what the cows are for. That instead of running a swather over it, I run cows over it.
Yeah.
And
the most efficient way to turn plants into meat.
There you go. That's my whole goal right there. You summed it up. That's it. But I'm thankful that guys like the hay, and there's a lot of people that are profitable at it for whatever reason. I'd go head to head with them anytime as far as the cash flow about what they could make off that ground, But I know it's a cost of, you pay $250,000 for a swather nowadays. It's nuts. But anyway, fortunately they are, because I buy most of my hay. I put up very little. Okay. And I basically just wait a year. Like last year, we had a super good year, and these guys had piles of hay everywhere. And I said, "What do you got to have for it?" And I mean, you get it sometimes for half of what it costs if you buy it that same year. And 2-year-old hay, my cows will eat it. They will eat it. So I mean, I can pick it up for that. I mean, a guy can do different things, but that's the same with any businesses. You're looking at where you can save money, where you can turn something that maybe be a loss into a profit. And it's so easy to get, anytime you're dealing with the live stuff too, like you're talking about, it's easy to get caught up in the newest and greatest things. I mean, I don't know how many seminars I've been to for like the vaccines, the newest vaccines, the newest implants, so on and so forth. And I said, if I did everything you guys said, they tell you, well, if you do this, you'll gain X number of pounds, so on and so forth. My calves would weigh 2,000 pounds if all that worked, and obviously it won't, and you can spend a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
I mean, everybody's trying to sell you something. But back to I think that any businessman has to be careful, because there's always somebody wanting to say, and a lot of it is good. You just have to determine what will work for you.
We saw that it was always the labor saving devices, and this piece of equipment will save labor. And like you said, if I bought all of those, these roofs would put themselves on.
That's exactly.
You got to figure out which ones work for you and your guys and your system. And they're not always what they're cracked out to be.
And I mean, a lot, like you say, a lot of it is good stuff. And I mean, I don't know how many times they've tried to sell me something to feed, a different way to feed the cows. It'll save you 10-15% you'll have 10 to 15% less waste on your hay when you feed it. I said, I don't have 10 or 15% to save. I said, they don't leave that much. That ground is bare when my cows get done. So what are you talking about? So anyway, that was interesting too. So.
Well, you've had quite a career raising cattle. Are there any specific highs or lows that stand out of maybe the most difficult time, the most difficult season?
Well, it was I thank the Lord that my wife stuck with me during them 1 years they were tough. After, we was so excited when we come out of the FDIC, and I thought, Charlie, okay, we are going to roll, and this is going to be good. And then he decided, I just want out. The pressure was, he was tired of it, which I totally could understand. And so anyway, those years after that, I mean, they was pretty tough there for a couple of years. And then when we got the lease at Crazy Woman, that was actually almost a relief. We loved it down there. We loved the community, but I mean, I was not getting ahead that much. We was doing all right, but we was not so, but it was when we lost that lease, them 5 years, them were probably the toughest for us of any time we was. But, it was an interesting, it was even during then, it was definitely a time of growth with my relationship with my Lord, and trying to figure out what Jesus wanted me to do here. It's like, okay, I'm trying to figure this out. And then I said, fine, I'll just work for the rest of my life for $5 an hour. And I tipped over four-wheeler and broke my back. And thank you that I can walk. I will not complain again. Which I failed at that, but it was an interesting time. And, and I'm sure you probably went through that highs and lows when we got the ranch bought, and we was so excited on the one hand. On the other hand, I was scared because I was more debt than I'd ever had in my life. And I mean, I probably had 50 cows paid for when we went into that, and I had to buy some more, and I had the other stuff going on, and it was in that first year. I mean, I seriously, I was out haying. We had to hay just about everything because I had to lease with my brother at that time. So most of the cows was up on his place up north. And so we was haying, and I was burning the candle at both ends. I honestly was out there. I'd hay during the day, and I had to irrigate, and my girls were to help me. They was at that time a sophomore and a freshman and a sixth grader. And they was doing a lot of the irrigating and stuff in different places for me. And I mean, I was working so hard, and I was house swathing one day after I'd been baling most of the night. And then, and suddenly I said, I got to stop. I'm just going to have to lay my head down. And I laid my head down and went to sleep. And when I raised up, I had no idea where I was. I could not figure it out. I thought, well, I'll follow this windrow and it'll come to me. I was so rum-dum. It was unbelievable. And I thought, okay, this is getting tough. I got to pay attention better. But what really came home to me was one day, Lane, the youngest, a sixth grader, she had been down doing some flood irrigating. And we had a drought on top of everything else. That's
year. What you want your first year.
Yeah.
New place.
And it had been a drought the year before. So everything was really tight anyway. And her and Aaron had been down irrigating, and Lane come in, and she had wore shorts and a T-shirt because it was so hot. But everywhere that she slapped a deer fly, it was mud smashed on her, whether it was the face or wherever. And she came in crying, and she goes, is it always going to be this hard? And I'm going, holy crap, I got to slow up. I said, okay, girls. And I got everything shut down, and we went up on the mountain for 2 days just so they could breathe. I'm going to burn them out. And that was a lesson to me that you still have to keep the main thing. So back to your question about being hard, it was you're juggling what needs to be done with what has to be done, and your family has to be done. I mean, if I'd have messed up there, that would have been a forever sorry moment for a guy,
Yeah, that's good. You're juggling what needs to be done with what has to be done.
Yeah.
I think determining which things fall into which category is where a lot of us get sideways.
And it was we got done that fall and made the payments, had money left over, and it was like the bank was off our case, and I was able to pay them other people. We refinanced and paid it off. And then, I mean, from then on, it was just a matter of paying attention to things. I mean, the opportunity came, must have been in 2006 when the interest rates dropped so much? I can't remember.
Yeah, probably about that time.
Anyway, and we refinanced everything. Well, on top of my folks had to up there and they had borrowed the money for their modular that they'd moved in the garage, and I said, "Mom, let's refinance this." She says, "I don't know if I want to do that." I says, "I'll help you. Let's just do that. I mean, it'll save you." And we refinanced it so that it would save them. I think it was like $200 a month or something, which is a pretty good little spending thing for them, you know. And she said, "Well, we can't take it out 30 years. I ain't going to live 30 years. I said, "So what?" I said, I'm taking it over if you guys die anyway. So just have this. I mean, it was down to 4%. I said, just lock it in. It's good. It's a good move. So, I mean, they had it at 7.5 or something at that time. I mean, things like that. You know, you just take an opportunity. I mean, even though things were good right then, it could be better without costing a bunch of time, labor, and not horrible, but additional time and away from what needs to be done.
Is there a lesson that you wish you would have learned earlier?
I don't know which one I should talk about. I mean that's, you know, that whole thing about hindsight being 20/20. You know, there's some of them things that's like, I'm sure that if I'd have worked at it different, I probably could have not had to be, well, moving my wife 5 times. Nobody should put their wife through that. But in 1 year, somebody's complaining, "I've had to move twice in 3 years." And I'm going, "Oh, whippy dippy."
I hate moving.
Oh,
that's like my least favorite thing. When we bought the house that we're in now, I told my wife that she could pick where she wanted to go, but she better like it because I'm going to die.
You ain't moving again. Well, we got rid of a lot of things. My wife had these 3 barrels. I don't know. They must have been like 30-gallon barrels or something like that, and of her college stuff. I'm going, after the 3rd time, I'm going, "Are you serious? I am not going to move these anymore." And I said, "You are never going to use any of these books." And well, she kept some of her math books just in case so she could use it teaching. Well, she never used any of them. We moved them, but it was the rest of them, they went and sold them where we could. So anyway, it's just, you know, it would have, of course, I always wish I'd accepted Jesus a lot earlier in my life. You know, I thought I kind of, but it was an interesting thing. We had Erin, and she was a year old or something. Maybe she was pushing 2. And I decided we need to start going to church. My aunt and uncle went to church, and I really was impressed with how their family was, you know, and stuff. And of course, there's wonderful people. And I thought, I think we should go to church. So that I said, I'm tough enough to handle hell, but I don't want my daughter growing up that way. In my ignorance, once again, had no idea what I was saying when I said that. And then I found out that I needed God as much as my kid, even more than my daughters did. So anyway, but that, I'm thankful that even though it was so late in my life, so to speak, it probably would have saved me from a lot of wrecks in high school and stuff in college if I would have been a Christian then. But I'm so thankful that it was then that it happened, at least when it did, because then I was able to be focused on my family better. And that was the most, and that's been the greatest blessings, is watching them in their walk and stuff now. I mean, it's from all the way down to my grandkids. I mean, it's wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. Is there an opinion that you held strongly at one point in time that you've changed your mind about?
I'd have to think about that a while, Eric. You know, I've changed my mind several over the years, of course, but I don't know if there's one that I held really strongly. That I guess I kind of think about my attitude towards education, towards the college guys. I was so disgusted with them in them first years of after we'd been to the ranching schools and whatnot, and their whole attitude. And I was like, I just wrote them off, and I thought that's the wrong way to look at that. Just keep going on. And when I seen them starting to accept that and helping the ranchers out, I mean, what they was doing before was not helping. I mean, there was more than one guy that went totally broke following their teaching and stuff. And that was a good thing. Of course, this was when we was at Crazy Woman. Like I say, I had that whole attitude, and then the opportunity came up. They had one of their ag teachers at Sheridan College passed away. And my banker said, Dave, I put your name in to be a teacher to help these guys out for a semester. I said, you did what? I said, I don't even have a degree, Roberta. And she says, no. She says, talk to these guys. I said, okay. So I went and talked to them. And so I ended up teaching I taught an HRM class is what I did. I went through the book and the whole thing. And there was 20-some kids in there. And it was like, this was really interesting. And I got to talk to a couple of the other instructors a little bit. And I thought, so I suppose that was probably the biggest change is that I became, for that very short time, part of the education system instead of just knocking them. But and it's been fun watching that whole change. It's been difficult for them because you think about those guys that wrote books on some of that stuff. I mean, they had made their living doing that, and suddenly you're telling them that stuff you're teaching is crock, and that would be hard for them to accept. I mean, anybody to accept, say, okay, I guess I got to change my whole deal here. This ain't fair. So anyway, so I guess that would be, I don't know. Like I say, there's other things all the time. Anytime we're moving forward, you better be ready to change. Just like I was talking about that day when the girls came in and they was beat. And I thought, we got to change this. Making this pay is not the most important thing. I mean, we can make it both work, but we're going to have to take care of the first part first. And things like that. I mean, people should be aware of that kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. What has been your biggest win?
Well, if I didn't say my wife, I'd probably get thumped when I got home. So. But, it's, I've just been thankful for so many blessings that I've had that, I mean, God was protecting me before I was serving him. I mean, just helping me through the years. I mean, like I said, we was very focused on team roping and stuff, but always that my real passion was the agriculture end of things with cows and whatnot. And the biggest win, kid, you get out of high school and you think, well, I'll be a millionaire by the time I'm 30. Everybody assumes you're bulletproof then, and so on and so forth. And when we actually went in and made that last payment, that was probably one of the highlights of knowing that God had blessed us to keep going in the right way.
Yeah.
And and that was a big deal, and maybe a little bit of a pride issue there or something. For the last 10 years probably 15, when I'd go in to get refinanced or get my stuff done, I would shop around at them bankers and I'd say, you got to give me your best deal here. And I was kind of being kind of a turd about it, really. It used to be I'd go in with my hat in my hand and think, oh, boy, I hope I can get this money so I can go one more year, and now it's like, I'm a good customer. You guys are going to have to give me a good deal. Mm. And that was kind of arrogant on my part, but it was still. But on the other hand, I've had the opportunity to share those stories with different guys that have worked for me. And I said, you go into this banker, and if you've got all your ducks lined up so that they can see that and know that you're serious about this, and have some seriously good numbers and not just say, this is what we're going to do and this blah, blah, blah. I said, you can do amazing things. And that's been fun doing that. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, probably the biggest win was when we actually was able to say, now we'll be able to just do it as we want to.
Yeah, that's a big turn, not having the bank involved in your business.
And I still, we still have the bank, and we got a good relationship with them because I mean, operating loan gets pretty intense in between. And our operation, again, non-traditional. I sell a lot of short-term cows. I wean the calves in August, sell them cows at the sale barn, and end of August, 1st of September. And then I start buying cows, but I don't sell my actual calves until November. So there's that period in there. Suddenly I can have a lot of money out, and a lot of times I'll run out of money, and I can have all I need is a short-term loan for a couple $100,000 or whatever to cover some cows for that period till we sell the calves. And so I am involved with the bank, and I appreciate being able to have a relationship with them. I mean, they're excited because they know they're going to get paid back. So, but they want to keep you as a customer. I mean, I don't know. I think the First National used to call them, or First Northern now, blue ribbon customers or something. I thought, well, I'm a long ways from that. I used to get them letters, but anyway, so.
Well, I know, yeah, you've been through some ups and downs, moving 5 times in 1 year, laid up with a broken back. At the same time, you lose all your leases. What is it that motivates you to keep pushing and keep going when things get really hard?
Well, I don't even, I've had people ask that kind of stuff for Eric, and it's like, well, what else do you do? Give up? That ain't an option. To me, I mean, that's the way Dad raised us. I mean, you just kept going and figure out if, that didn't work, you better figure out what does, and that's what, and like I say, and I keep talking about that passion you feel for what you do. The passion that you have, now, it's varies a lot more. I mean, I still have a passion for ranching, but I have a serious passion for my grandkids, and and watching how my daughters have done, and I have a son-in-law. It just thrills me to watch him. He tries different things, and I
going from ranching to the medical field is pretty good.
Well,
that's a pretty good jump.
Well, he was in the medical field already, and then he's thought maybe try the ranching, and then he don't have that passion. But I mean, he's a businessman himself, and just watching him go through that, and it's fun because I mean he's been successful, and sometimes that didn't work out at all. I go, welcome to life. Yeah. and it's just, so my point being, and now having, when we have a relationship with Christ, and you're growing in that relationship all the time with other people, that's always an exciting thing in itself too. I mean, we, in our life group, we had this elderly, we refer to ourselves as a geriatric group because I'm one of the youngest ones. Anyway, it's seeing the growth in some of them people has been so exciting. Anytime you get to witness that, I mean, it's easy to see why our pastors they'll get on such a high when they get people coming to Christ. I mean, it's a wonderful feeling. So, I mean, you get to have all them things. I guess that's have to do with age. You figure out that you don't have to be focused on just one thing. You can have many things you can be passionate for at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned a big passion for you early on was rodeoing and roping specifically. Did you continue doing that? Do you still like rodeoing, or did that go by the wayside when you started ranching more seriously?
When we bought the place, I was still roping, but I tell everybody, I pretty much traded my ropes in for an irrigating shovel. Pretty poor trade at the time. once we got going, we still roped a little bit. I mean, all the time that up until then, but it was ironic because at the same time, Mike, who was the main partner, and Steve even. Steve had moved. He was down in Cheyenne, so he wasn't around him very much. But Mike had moved on out of and was doing those other things himself, and so both of us it wasn't important anymore. It was like it just suddenly was not the passion that we had. I mean, my brother, youngest brother, went down to Wickenburg. That's where old guys go in the wintertime. And they have ropings every single day. Steve said, "Oh, you got to get a horse and come down there." And I'm going, when I go down there, I have as much fun riding a side-by-side as I would roping. And it's like, we just don't have that passion. I don't have you got to have kind of a killer instinct if you're going to compete like that. That's pretty much gone. I just enjoy life right now, and it's not something that I have a desire to do anymore.
Okay.
I mean, and people are just shocked because I mean we practiced 4 days a week, and then you rope 2 days a week.
Yeah.
I mean, you was serious about it, and if you didn't have a roping that weekend, you was like, oh man, it's like the world was over, and I was like, really? So anyway, but I don't know, it's a phase of life, I guess, but it was kind of funny how it happened to Mike and I both at the same time, and
yeah, moved on to the better things in life, even if you didn't know it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It was, and it's been, I mean, no looking back. It's been good. I mean, it's just, and I mean, I think that happens with a lot of people. I mean, if you cling to something like that too much, I mean, no matter what it might be, I mean, you can get things out of focus, I think.
Yeah. So you miss out on a lot.
Yeah. Wow. That's a good way to put it.
Well, this is my absolute favorite question. I know you've talked about it a fair amount already, but as a Jesus follower, how has that shaped your business, your leadership, the way that you operate?
Well, probably the biggest impact had was my attitude towards the people I worked with, trying to make sure that they felt part of it, and being around my neighbors. Instead of somebody does you a bad turn, instead of saying, well, I'm never speaking to that SOB again, it's like, I think we can work this out. That's more important than just holding that bitterness forever. So those human relationships like that, I think, are the biggest thing. And just the excitement of, like I was mentioned earlier, about watching my grandkids. And of course, 2 of them are girls, an 8th grader and a sophomore, which that's some scary times from my perspective anyway. But
so what's next from here? You said you don't have any plans to retire. You love what you do. You just want to maybe slow down a little bit. What do you have on the horizon? What are you looking forward to?
Well, like I was mentioning with my hired men that I had problems with, I'm hoping I got past that. I'm hoping the young man that I have right now, Cole, he already knew he wanted to be a rancher. He doesn't have to be in the bar all the time. That makes it a lot easier. and he's excited about, I mean, he's just been there a year, but he's excited about increasing his herd. And I said, I'll let you increase up there quite a ways. I said, if the guys that I had before had went up, because I was going to let them get up to 30 cows right away if they wanted. And if they had done that, and stayed and had those cows paid for this last year, they'd have made $100,000.
Wow.
But with that and the wages that I was giving them. And they get their room and board.
Yeah.
Or the room and utilities. I mean, so there's an opportunity there if you want to pursue it. And so that's where I'm looking for right now, as I'm just praying that Cole and I keep getting along good, and if that works out so that he can keep increasing and I can decrease. I mean, we're at a point I don't have to have all them cows because I don't have that big of bills. And when they're paid for, checks are a lot easier to deal with. So, I mean, so it can be a win-win for both of us if we can handle that right.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at. And and like I say, I already tested him out this year. I was gone 3 weeks to Arizona. We was down there and I just kept checking in and I said, how's it going? And we had a cold spell there. And I said, how'd you get through there? He said, well, I had a couple hydrogen freeze, but I got it handled. Everything's good. I said, everything else good? He goes, yep. I said, okay, I'll see you in the spring. He said, you can be able to ride the grub line that long? I said, well, probably not. But so anyway, that's kind of my goal. Just being able, just like right now, my granddaughter said, she plays clarinet and she's got a performance this weekend in Rapid City. And I tell Cole, I said, you can be okay here this weekend? He said, yeah, I can handle it. I said, okay, I'll see you. We're going to blast down there. Those things like that, I'm free to go whenever I want then. And that's what my goal is with a hired man. I mean, I feel like and this is something that I have to remind myself. Just because it was what I wanted when I was that age, it doesn't mean everybody wants that.
Yeah.
And so what I think I'm offering them, that I would have died to get that when I was that age, might not be after. And I think that's happened, so far with several of the guys. But hopefully this one will work. And that's the biggest thing.
Yeah,
I'm interested in.
And it sounds like from that you think there's still opportunity in the cattle business for a young person that wants to get started. If you that passion word again, you have to, I mean, it might not be easy every year, but tell me a business it is. I mean, unless Dad hands it over to you, all paid for, whatever business that might be, and I really appreciated listening to Adam Weatherby's honesty. He said, people don't get in business like I got in business most of the time, and that's the truth of the matter. But if you are determined to make it work, but you have to get inventive. Just like I didn't have enough down payment. I was not even close. And through some creative things with different things, and we got those 3 people to help me out getting that started, and I was able to get them paid off in 1 year just because that's the way it worked with the financial thing. You have to think things like that, outside the box saying, and so it's disheartening to me when I see it's too easy right now. Because, I mean, there is such a shortage of labor. I mean, just like in Clermont, a lot of them kids, they didn't go to trade school. They didn't go to anything because they could go straight into the methane field, and they was making $30 an hour. I mean, that was like a gold mine to that age. That's more money than they'd ever dreamed they'd ever have in their life. I mean, this was 8 years ago or whatever, and now, I mean, if they was paying attention, I'm sure you can keep going if you're interested in that field. But if you're just doing it for the money, you're going to bounce around and never be satisfied. So, but back to your original question, as far as I'm concerned, if you really want it, you can find it. I mean, there are people out there. I'm not the only one that doesn't have kids interested in taking over the place or something. I mean, there's guys, and they might not want to sell. I mean, same thing, but they can't run it themselves either. So, yeah. I mean, you look around, you can find things like that. And it's, and if you come across with a good plan for somebody, I mean, that's what works out so well for my relationship with Charlie, is once we had both been to that school, then we got together and we came up with a plan and that benefited both of us. And that's what I'd encourage anybody that was new to get into it. And like we talked about, education. I mean, you gotta be able to do this stuff. And if you can, now there is so many guys out there you can talk to. I mean, there is
the HRM is the one avenue, and then Stan Parsons was actually the original partner was Alan, and he started his own company, and he's sold it now to a guy that's down in Wheatland, and it's the same deal, and it's very intense, and then you have a network to help you all the time, and that's important too. You can find these guys and that are. I mean, you get a rancher talking, and he'll talk to you forever. So I mean, you can pick up a lot of stuff, and sometimes it's what not to do.
Oh, sometimes those are the best lessons to learn.
Well, there you go. I mean, when I tell people we lost 80 cows, and they give me this look like, at what? 1 year? It was an intense thing, but it was an extremely learning deal that it made. The fact that we come out of that better showed me that we was on the right track. We just needed to tweak it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Stay off of the hot stuff and go the other way. So, but yeah, to me, it's a no-brainer. If you are really interested in agriculture, you can do it.
Yeah.
It's there.
And man, I think your story's even a little more unique in that you didn't start out with a family ranch. You started out as a hand and have worked your way up to own your own place. That seems like a bit of a rare story, and you did it through 20% interest rates.
Yeah, I love telling that story, Eric. When them guys whine about it, I said, when I get to tell them, yeah, my first 20 cows was at 22%, and they're going, no way, that's never been that. And I'm going, that's credit card,
Yeah.
Just imagine what a credit card rate was at that time. I can't even imagine. But, and that's it. Yeah, there's the stuff out there, and it's incredible to me when I hear about the amount of money that's around that's available if you have a good plan for some. I mean, some of them guys are willing to help startups out. I mean, like I say, it always blows me away when I see some of the cash that's flowing. I'm pretty ignorant. When I see some of that, it's like, oh my goodness. I mean, so anyway.
Was there somebody that you'd like to see on the show? Somebody with an interesting story or an interesting industry that you'd like to learn more about?
My new neighbor. he I haven't got to talk to him to find out exactly what it is he does. He is another guy. They're in the process of getting this place bought next to me, and he's originally from Texas, and he's living in Torrington right now. But anyway, he started two other businesses, and right now he's in some kind of a business, and like I say, I don't know what it is, but he's never had any college education, and he started two different successful businesses, and this one here he's in the process of selling for, I don't know how much, but it's a buku buck of dollars. And I mean, guys like that with supposedly, according to what used to be the standard, if you don't have an education, he shouldn't be there. And I mean, I think there's a lot more people like that than a person realizes, and he's a super nice guy. I mean, if I might throw his name out to him, throw your name out to him if you wish, because he's in the process now, and but it's the same deal. He decided he's going to sell it, and I mean, it's an international company, and family's going to move on to the ranch and change their lifestyle.
Well, good for them. And I might have you make an introduction, see if we can get him on and learn a little bit more about it.
I'm sure he's easy to talk to, so I think you'd enjoy him.
Good deal. So. Well, our last question, I know this might be a little bit out of your wheelhouse, but either to fuel or settle the debate, if you have a job to do that requires a cordless tool, which brand do you prefer? I started out with Craftsman, and now I got DeWalt, and my hired man's got some Milwaukee. So we got all batteries scattered everywhere when you're talking about cordless tools. You got the right tool, just got to find the battery. To fit.
Exactly. I love them. Them are definitely. I am not particular as long as the battery's charged.
So, okay. Well, thank you very much for joining me. This has been a lot of fun, and I've learned a lot about the cattle business and about you, and I hope our listeners have as well.
Well, I enjoyed it. I was very nervous, like you said, because, like I told you earlier, because when I see them high rollers on there, but that one guy, it was such an encouragement to him. I'm pretty impressed with your podcast. I think people can learn something from that. Anybody that's interested in any kind of business, there's some people on there that'll help you.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Awesome. And thank you guys for joining us here on From the Ground Up Show. Again, we're on most social media platforms at From the Ground Up. Please like, share, follow, subscribe, all the things. If you can click that auto download button on the podcast platform to make sure we get credit for that download each week when it's released, and leave us a 5-star review, leave a comment on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. That's the biggest thing you can do to help move us up in the algorithms and get the content out there. Until next time, keep grinding.